good evening and welcome to the Italian Radio Hour. Io sono Viviana and I would like to welcome back our regular listeners and also welcome any new listeners. Also, be sure to like us on Instagram and Facebook at Italian Radio Hour and subscribe to our YouTube channel to catch up on any past video interviews. Vorrei dare il benvenuto ai nostri ascoltatori da tutto il mondo. Grazie per essere con noi anche oggi mentre continuiamo il nostro viaggio per l'Italia e la cultura italiana. So today on the Italian Radio Hour, we're joined by a Pittsburgh icon, Patti, founder and owner of La Prima Espresso. Over 3 decades, La Prima has been more than just a coffee shop. It's been a cultural hub, a gathering place, and a symbol of Italian heritage in the heart of the Strip District. But Sam's story goes beyond espresso. He is also an independent scholar of Italian-American studies, having close ties and taught at the University of Calabria. And in today's episode, we will explore the journey of a man whose love for coffee is deeply rooted in tradition, community, and identity. We'll talk about what La Prima represents for the city of Pittsburgh, the evolution of Italian-American identity, and how Sam continues to inspire new generations to stay connected to the roots. So make yourself a great cup of coffee and don't go anywhere, ma prima pubblicità. Parli italiano? Do you want to learn, improve, or master your Italian? Istituto Mondo Italiano can help. Located in the heart of Regent Square, Mondo Italiano offers small group classes and one-on-one private tutoring in person or online to help you learn Italian in no time. Visit us online at istitutomondoitaliano.org. Benvenuto, it's always a pleasure to have you on the Italian Radio Hour. How are you today?
I'm well, except that our company doesn't have any electricity. We're doing fine. There are always hurdles to jump over.
Yes, so that actually impacts you greatly, both from the several locations that you have. We mentioned, the Strip District, but that's not your only location. Actually, we do have some announcements for our listeners and viewers, but also the roaster where you roast your coffee and so forth. So let's keep our fingers crossed that everything will be restored as soon as possible. So even though you have been a guest on our program, I think this is your 3rd interview, and La Prima Espresso has been a supporter of the Italian Radio Hour from the very get-go, and I appreciate that. Because they're listening to this program from 98 countries, I just look at some stats today. Sam, wow. How about we start from the beginning and you tell our audience a little bit about your personal and family background, and then we'll go into how that your Italian heritage has shaped your identity. So a little bit.
Yeah, my mother's family comes from Sicily, and my father's family comes from Calabria. So I'm well rooted in the south of Italy, and it was always, important for us. Family was important for us, food was important for us, community was important for us. And, we always cared about the traditions and lived those traditions. And I think that probably as you grow up, you're kind of isolated in your own family and you don't see how the rest of the world works. But when you, get out and you go to college and you do a little traveling, you go to the army, you see how different people function. And my family really is always been there to support me, and I treat my family like that. My friends are like that, and I think that especially in this day and age, family is really, really important, because I think that kids have a lot of outside influences. The world has a lot of outside influences. In some way or other, we need to be centered. And I think family is certainly one of the things that centered us, and probably it's at the very nature of La Prima. I mean, I've said this about 1,000 times because I heard it about 15 or 20 years ago in a coffee shop. The 3rd most important thing is the coffee. The first thing is the general atmosphere or the feel that you get when you walk into the shop. And the other thing is connectivity, how the people that work there connect with you, how the other customers connect with you. I grew up in a bar room in Indiana, PA, and it was really a local community family type operation. So that's what I was used to. So more than anything else, I guess I could say that I've been buoyed by family. And go ahead.
No, I was just saying that your approach to family, sense of family, is what we also perceive as I should say customers, but members of the community, so to speak, because we do feel that attention to service, but attention not only just to make a wonderful beverage, but that human contact that yourself and anyone on your staff extends to all of us, whether we're regulars or we're out of towners, or maybe we're just grabbing a coffee to go. So indeed, it is perceived. So you just mentioned a little bit, but before you got into the La Prima that we're familiar with, you had a little bit still connections to the coffee business or maybe the machines. So tell us a little bit about your journey before opening La Prima.
Well, I was actually a teacher before I opened La Prima, but my wife and I were living in Virginia. We came back to Pittsburgh. I took care of our youngest daughter for about a year and a half, and I said, "Oh, gee, it's time for me to get a job." So we were at a conference, a law conference. My wife is an attorney in California, and I kept running into all these little coffee shops. I think they were a little ahead of maybe certainly Pittsburgh in terms of coffee shops. And I kept seeing this name called Pasquini. So I asked somebody about Pasquini. He said, "Oh, they have a shop down on Olympic Boulevard." So I went down there and visited them, and I realized they sold these espresso machines called Cimbali, which certainly at that time were the largest seller of cappuccino machines in the world. And I said, "Gee, I think I can do this in Pittsburgh." I was looking for something to do, and I said, "I think I'll do that." And they thought I was a little bit crazy, but we kind of pulled things together. I went back to Pittsburgh, and I thought, okay, if I'm going to sell espresso machines, I need to be in contact with restaurateurs. And maybe the best place to do that is a little place in the Strip District, because that was the market district, and they would come for, meat and dry goods, fish. They would come to the Strip District. So I figured I also probably needed a working showroom, because espresso machines didn't have a very good reputation. They were expensive. They broke down. Who's going to pay over $1 for a cup of coffee when a cup of coffee was 50 cents? So I really opened the coffee bar in the Strip as a working showroom. But lo and behold, even for the very first day we opened, business was kind of brisk. People said, "Oh, this is kind of interesting." And so we continued with that. I continued to sell machines. I still sell machines. And one thing led to another. So why don't you open a shop here? Why don't you open a shop there? And I'm thinking, gee, I sell espresso machines. Why don't you open a shop? But I opened a couple other shops, and we're about to open our 5th shop in May. And so I have 5 little coffee bars. Half of what we do is wholesale. Half of what we do is retail, and it's been a real good ride. I think probably at base, I'm a teacher. I'd love to teach. I've taught, I've coached. And I really like to do that. I like to work with young people. I happen to believe there are a lot of great young people out there. I know a lot of times you watch the news, and people my age want to say, "Well, these kids today, they don't want to work. They don't want to do this. They don't understand." There are a lot of great, good kids out there. And I really like to try to grab them and work with them. And so when they leave La Prima, hopefully they'll say, "Gee, I learned some stuff about dealing with people. I learned some stuff about running a business." And so that's the other thing that I do. I teach. I just enjoy working with young kids.
So obviously, being in business for over 35 years, you were indeed the pioneer that kind of set the stage for this coffee culture, but again, this sense of community. Now, because you have seen over 3 decades, can you tell us how maybe the neighborhoods have changed, or some stories that the younger audience might not be familiar with, that you would like to share, their clear memories, or just maybe what the Strip District looked like back in the day?
Right. I can tell you that, I'd say, okay, I'll admit that maybe I'm smart and maybe I can work hard, but man, you got to have good luck. And I've certainly had a lot of good luck, and I really appreciate that. And one of the first pieces of good luck I had was my first landlord was absolutely fantastic. First of all, I thought I was crazy. So you're going to come here and sell coffee by the cup for over $1.50. The coffee is 50 cents a cup. Okay, and he was just so cooperative. I opened in July. When I got to the next July, it was really, really hot. And he said, "Sam, it's too hot in here. I'm going to buy an air conditioner. I'm going to install it. We'll split the cost. I mean, just little things like that. Having a great landlord. When I came to the Strip, it was still primarily a wholesale, area, a wholesale market, and most of the places like Penn Mac, the fish places, closed about 2 o'clock in the afternoon because they opened very early in the morning. Because again, wholesale people came and got their stuff early in the morning and then went back and ran their business. One of the absolute and unequivocal biggest changes is, I think in the last couple of years, there have been over 3,000 residents who have moved into the Strip. The Strip always had residents, but not like today. So that's one of the real big things. The Strip is a residential area. I don't know. There must be, my gracious be, there must be 1,000 apartments in the Strip today. So the other thing it's done is it's kind of extended the downtown. From the physical downtown. You're in the Strip, you're still in a very vibrant area, and it's certainly there's a relationship, a symbiosis between the Strip and downtown. I'm going to complain right now, so hang on. I think that the city made an absolutely stupid, egregious error when they didn't take the produce terminal and make it into a public market like the Reading Terminal, West Side Market, and the farmers market in Los Angeles. They could have done great things. I think that the terminal building is nice, but it's more of a mall. So they really could have done
the nature that they kind of removed the nature of what that place was, and that's where
yeah.
Back in the day when I
right.
had this joint Italiano Espresso initiative, and we would take the students, that's where it was your home.
Yeah, sure.
Moving into Chateau Street.
Right. If you come from Italy and you know what the markets are like in the Italian cities, I mean, every city has one, for meat, fish, vegetables, whatever the case might be. But, that time has passed. It's there. It's hanging in there. It's changed because it's become much, much more commercial. There's some wholesale, but not a lot. Still a great district. I mean, I love the Strip district. I feel like, it's my home. And as long as Penn Mac and Penn Avenue Fish and Woolies are there, it's going to be fine.
Wonderful. So, obviously the conversation, so we announced like briefly, again, you're opening your 5th location. For those of you that are listening or in the city of Pittsburgh, and those that are going to come here, can you give an idea of where geographically the new La Prima shop is going to be?
Well, facetiously, I'll tell you that it is at the end of Oakland on 5th Avenue. Probably 30 years ago, first of all, there was a pizza shop called Schuler's that opened in 1980. It's at Helkett in 5th Avenue. About 25 years ago, Oriente Schuley opened this store. I think he might have opened it with his brothers. And he said, Sam, I have this building. There are 3 retail spaces. There's a space for you. This place would really do great in Oakland. And I thought, well, it's really kind of at the end of Oakland. And it was kind of, much closer to the exit where you get on the Parkway than it was the part of, let's say, central Oakland. I guess about 3 or 4 months ago, he passed away. He passed away 3 years ago. About 3 or 4 months ago, two of his nephews, Timmy and Luciano, run the store. They said, Sam, this place is vacant. You got to come out here. I went out there and I said, oh my gracious, this isn't the end of Oakland anymore. First of all, there are the hospitals, which have been there. There's Carlo College, which has been there, but Pitt has done a lot of building and extended down below towards the Parkway. So it's really a vibrant area and a lot of things going on. So I said, well, luck and timing are everything. So we decided to take this space. And so we'll be, Schuley's has 2 of the retail spaces, and we'll take the end space. So we'll have some fun with that. I think we're going to be all right there.
Absolutely. So I'm going to take you back in time because I really want to have a conversation about, the Italian American culture, where it's been, where it is now, where it's going to be. And I wonder if this is going to bring you back to some memories. I can give you the date, 2014, di Amantea. Okay. So
Right.
I've done a little bit of my research. So this was an amazing interview that you gave, and you really touched upon a lot of topics that I would like to kind of bring up again and have a conversation about. Kind of your take, being also a scholar on this, has been passionate and studying, the culture for, again, so many decades. A little bit about these. I don't want to say define what Italian American is, because every individual has a different background, different experience, both past and future. So maybe let's talk about your own personal experience. And at what point did you get interested in wanting to find out more about your past? Were you a teenager? Were you already like a university student? Tell us a little bit. When did it start to matter to you?
Well, I think that, for my whole life, it was clear that we were Italian. I mean, it's simplistic to say the food that we ate, but, the food, the religion, my family's friends, the people we lived around, everything was Italian. But that was just maybe the outward signs. In terms of really trying to get in touch with my roots, this is very clear. In 1976, I was teaching at North Catholic High School in Pittsburgh. I taught English, and they really had a good library there. They got some money from the state, and they really took advantage. Having a lot of books. And so two things happened. Number one, the University of Pittsburgh and a lot of institutions were really on the buzz of 1976, the 200th anniversary of the United States of America. And so that was the time when there was a big push towards black pride, ethnic heritage, ethnic pride. And so there was this consortium at Pitt that was for teachers of high school about how to inject this idea of ethnicity and black pride into your curriculum to dealing with your students. So I got involved with that. I went to a couple of the symposiums. And the other thing is, with all these books that they had at North Catholic, I found this poetry book. It was a page-facing poetry book. And it was in Italian, it was in English. And I just started thinking, I have four grandparents, and none of them could. First of all, none of them could read; they were illiterate. Second of all, it was in Italian, and I didn't know anything about Italian, so it just kind of piqued my curiosity. And I was in a place where I had a vehicle to follow through with this. I was teaching in a curriculum. I had a chance to teach this. There was this symposium. There was the United States, 200 years of United States history. So I just plugged into that personally, and I plugged into that in terms of what I was teaching.
Mm-hmm.
And I followed through with that. I started to take did I know some Italian words? Yes, but I didn't really speak Italian. So I thought, if you're really going to delve into this, you're going to get to a point where everything stops because you can't speak Italian.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started to study Italian. And so now I
Yes.
speak Italian okay.
No, more. So as I said, you touch upon the language, and I also want to talk about your first trip to Italy. But it looks like that we should be putting emphasis into learning Italian, especially because also during COVID, where people cleaned up closets and maybe came across boxes, I call them the shoe boxes with the magic documents. I mean, with a,
You're right.
or maybe an elderly person in the family passed away. And if people didn't know because of the language barrier, whether that box was full of certificates or like important things that would have shed light on the past, on the lives of these individuals, maybe that just got discarded and everything. So can we just, obviously as Istituto Mondo Italiano, we've been doing this for 15 years. And and it's just also a great pleasure to take people onto their language and cultural journey, because if or when, I would say more when they're going to reconnect with the Italian side of their family because they feel that there is a tussle that is missing. Because the feedback that we get when people go to Italy is like, I belong here. It kind of feels natural. So often it's because they have family that is from there. We got on this quest, as I said, 15 years ago. We'll continue until everyone speaks the language. But how did that change in your experience? I don't know, when you went to Italy and connect with your relatives, were you already somehow fluent? Were you able to communicate? Do you remember your first encounters? I think you even went to like an 18th birthday, and you were like,
Oh yeah,
as
yeah,
it was a big to-do at that point.
yeah. Well, first of all, let me couch this by saying a couple of things. The most concerning issue in Italian American studies, Italian American college for me, is the status of younger generation Italian Americans. I mean, we're 4 generations out. And you think about this too. What's going to happen to the future generations? Is it going to go away? It could go away just as easily as it could be preserved. So I think that it's our job, people in our generations, to lead and guide kids and at least give them some direction. You're right. If you don't pursue it, there's always going to be some little missing link. So I encourage people all the time: go to Italy, go find your family. It doesn't matter if you can speak Italian. It doesn't matter if you don't know these people. And I've had a lot of people go. They knock on somebody's door and they get treated like kings and queens. And all you have to do is bring some pictures, bring some documents, and for the most part, they're really happy to see you. So I was at the University of Pittsburgh. I was studying language. I was studying undergraduate language so I could get into the graduate school. And I was lucky enough to get some financial help from the nationality rooms. And so I just packed my bags, and my aunt kind of directed me to this Amantea, which is a nice beach town in Calabria. And I went to a hotel, and I, called my cousins, and they kind of knew who I was because I had my aunt's, a second cousin that had kept some connection. The first thing they did was he sent somebody down on a motorino to bring. They wouldn't have it that I was going to stay in the hotel, and I just built this, this wonderful relationship with them, and kept going back, and I still go back, and actually, my wife and I have an apartment in this little town that we want to have there, so that and my kids, my nephews, and they love to go there. That we don't go often enough, but I just wanted to have a place that said, okay, here's a home base. You don't have to worry about that. So that was really important. And and I've gone through stages where I thought, well, maybe the language isn't so important, but the language is absolutely foremost and critical. I mean, what do Italians think of Italian Americans? Well, they don't think anything if they can't speak the language. So you're going to tell me you're Italian, you don't speak the language. So it's critical to learn the language above and beyond any advantages there are to knowing a foreign language. And I think we don't have to talk about this now, but you really, a foreign language, enhances your life in your intellectual width and breadth. So I think language study is important. Why not study the language of your heritage? And I think that you just hit a brick wall if you try to go there and belong if you don't know the language.
Well, even because some of the material that, again, like I was doing research and I'm presenting on the golden traditions of Abruzzo, certain records are just in Italian. So if you want to do some research at some point, you will indeed also hit that roadblock, or maybe hear the memories of the elderly. There is no way that they're going to speak English and tell you all those stories that are definitely lessons of life, each one of them. So yes, from your motorino, your moped experience to then your teaching experience, with the University of Calabria. Tell us a little bit how it felt, and maybe the first week it was a little bit of an adjustment. Then the second week everyone is kind of getting on the same wave length. So I don't know, it's been a while, but maybe you might remember some of the conversations because I would assume that even maybe the sense of the academics a little different between the two countries, but I would also assume that there's always a percentage, a considerable percentage of people that might have had someone that immigrated to the US or Canada that could connect indeed with the content of the lectures. So can you share a little bit about that experience?
First of all, I can tell you, I was very fortunate at the university. There was no there. Italian American Studies was just beginning, and so I was very fortunate at the University of Pittsburgh and at the University of Pennsylvania to have people that let me study Italian American culture and history, and so that was important. Now, man, the number of books, the number of programs is absolutely fantastic. But again, they need young kids to come and want to study this. And I've had the opportunity to teach Italian American studies at the University of Pennsylvania, at Pitt, and in Calabria. And one of the real joys of this whole thing is you bring kids into the classroom. I say, look, I'm no great academician, but this is a serious course, and I'm going to make you pay attention. I'm going to make you work. So let's have some fun. But more than anything else, listen to what I'm going to tell you. This course is about you and your life. Never, how many courses are you going to have that are dedicated to who you are and where you came from? And so that's really fun. And the other thing I say is, oh, gee, there might be a couple kids in here that aren't Italian American, but we're going to give you a framework. So if your family is from Poland or wherever your family or Greece, just plug in. The ideas, about food, the ideas about the old country versus the new country, the ideas of identity, migration, all these things. Just plug it in. So here's a course that you're going to take about you. And here is the brilliant thing about these kinds of courses. At the University of Pittsburgh, we have kids that have a connection to being Italian American studies because they're Italian American. But when I went to Calabria, and this was especially emphasized by Margarita, the woman that I work with in Calabria, saying, look, all these kids in this classroom have family that migrated. They went to South America, they went to the United States, and it was true. I mean, from the very beginning, we could sit and tell stories and share stuff because they were part of that experience. They knew people. They visited. They went there. They would go to England and study. They learned a little bit of English. They would go visit their families, in the United States, Argentina, whatever the case might be. So it's a real live kind of a course. It's not just something, oh, well, you have to study this and you kind of study it, inertly. So that makes it a lot of fun.
Yeah.
That makes fun.
And also, I personally notice, the difference between my siblings and me because they live in Italy, and even though they're very well educated and knowledgeable of many things, every time I go back home, I have these unquenchable thirst for old world traditions that even when I was in Italy, I was not particularly interested in, because now I've been in the US for so many years that I really, I feel that I'm this puzzle and of my experience in the US and Italy, and there is still so much to discover, or I have discovered also thanks to this podcast that add every time there is an additional piece that gets added. Okay, so we're going to take a quick break to hear from our sponsors. Don't go anywhere. Applying for Italian citizenship? Need documents translation? Istituto Mondo Italiano provides certified translations and assistance services. Be sure to visit us at istitutomondoitaliano.org and schedule your free consultation. Un caffè, per favore. My first cup of coffee sets the tone for my entire day, and I get my coffee at La Prima Espresso. La Prima has been brewing Pittsburgh's best coffee for over 35 years. Try any of their in-house roasted varieties of beans from all over the world at home, or come and enjoy an espresso or a cappuccino at any of their locations, with their friendly baristas and familiar faces who will make you feel at home. Visit laprima.com to get La Prima Espresso coffee at your door. Well, we're back here having a great conversation with some Patti from La Prima Espresso, but we're not talking about coffee. We'll be talking about coffee again at the end of the episode, but we're just kind of discussing a little bit about, Italian American studies, the program that Sam has taught in Calabria, and then maybe a little bit how the landscape has changed from, 20 years ago to now that we might be at the fourth generation. Unfortunately, like here in Pittsburgh, we just had a recent case where a landmark, it was demolished overnight, that was where people got married, baptized, communions. So this piece of history of Pittsburgh's Little Italy in Bloomfield was, within a day was gone. So even this tangible objects also in the church that belong to someone are now gone. So I was wondering, with the risk of losing memories, what has been your approach to collect as many stories as possible if you did back in the day, or how much do you invest of your time sharing those stories with the new generation with your family?
Well, I mean, a problem. I don't play golf, so I spend a lot of time, outside of work. You can imagine having a business. It consumes a lot of your time. So I spend a lot of my time with Italian American studies. Just kind of doing little things, talking to people, collecting stuff. In trying to, fight the fight. Again, I think you hit the nail right on the head. Whether you accept it or reject it, if you're an Italian American or an ethnic, that's part of who you are. You can't just throw it away. And I think that there are a lot of things that happen in the body and the brain that we don't have any control over. And I think that's one of the yearnings that we have.
Mm-hmm.
To know where we came, and that interest in knowing where you came from, to understand who your family is. And, I think you can enrich yourself by realizing in your family, there are people that did great things, there are people that did bad things, and you have that inside of you. And so I think you have to the more you know about, it's kind of like your medical history. I mean, you have the intellectual history, you have the ethnic history. And so, I think it's important to try to follow through with that in some ways. And it's really enriching. And it's a chance to go to Europe and see another part of the world. And especially in this day and age, I think we have to realize the world is a big place. There are a lot of things going on out there. And it's not always going to be the same.
So let's also the widespread use of technology right now. Do you have any take on social media? Because on one hand, we're all connected, sometimes even too much. But sometimes it might stay superficial. There might be only certain aspects of any culture being portrayed because those are the ones that are going to get the likes and all the interaction. So if you were to maybe give some words of wisdom to someone that might be at their fourth generation, to where should I go and where should I go and start?
Yeah, I think you should, start with your own family and develop a family tree and really research your own family. And find out where they came from. Like, oh, they're from Italy. I remember one time somebody said, "Oh, well, I'm from Calabria." I says, "Where?" And she didn't know anything but Calabria. And there are a lot of people that really don't know, or they go to Italy. You know what? It's not the worst thing when you go to Italy. If you say, "Well, gee, I'm going to go to Venice, Rome, and Florence," to maybe take a trip, south into Abruzzo or to Napoli or even to Sicily and Calabria to find out where you're just to pass the house and see what it's like. And I think you have to realize it would be like coming to the United States. You can come to New York and you can come to Chicago, but maybe you need to take a little trip to New Orleans or into Alabama or some of these other places that are a lot different. Because Italy isn't a big country, but it has the same dynamics as a big country like the United States. So I think the first thing is to just collect photos and your family history. Do family history. I think the other thing is celebrating festivals, holidays. Yeah, I mean, I think that's important. I think we're in an era, and I've been saying this for a lot of years, where we really need to intellectualize the Italian American experience so that younger generation, we always say, well, gee, we want to appreciate the sacrifices of our grandparents, great grandparents. But how much do you really know about that? I mean, there are so many books and movies that get into the struggles that they made, and some of the struggles were absolutely horrific. I mean, I don't know if there's a good example or bad example, but if you just think about arranged marriages and see all the dynamics of all the different kinds of arranged marriages, like this guy comes to America with his wife, she dies, so he sends back, and the family sends over the sister to be the second wife. I
In the
mean,
day,
come
it was
on.
very common. Yeah. Even, mhm. Yeah, yeah.
Just or the family structure. I mean, I think one of the ways, especially, I probably all Italian Americans, but especially the Southern Italian Americans, survived was because they had a very clear family structure and the way things were done. At the expense of an individual having their own life. Everything was for the family, because in Italy there was no help.
Yeah.
With the government, the church, whatever the case might be. They had to learn how to survive. So I think that knowledge. I mean, I think So whether it's books, movies, whatever the case might be, there's a lot of stuff out there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because otherwise we only stay on the food conversation. We just keep it very light, and we really need to materialize, this pride of belonging to a pack or wherever it is, a culture, by some historical information that have led other historical events, the migration, to really understand it and celebrate it, appreciate it, and honor it. You talked about a little bit of a touch upon the word festivals and folklore and everything. Tell us a little bit, maybe if you remember some festivals that you attended as a kid, or maybe while you were in Italy, if you encounter any specific festival. If that is the case, was the same festival, have you heard about the same festival also in the US? Like, for instance, San Rocco. San Rocco is there, San Rocco is also here. Or was it unique to that region, if you did see one?
Well, I think the probably the bigger populations that came to the United States had their festivals, and certainly I've known about San Rocco, and I can remember, my gosh, I with a couple of guys from CMU, I published an article about Bloomfield in 1980, and I remember asking the Father Oliverio about the festivals. He said, "Well, I think they're going to go away." They haven't gone away. They've come back, maybe in an Americanized or more modern version. But at the San Rocco Festival in Aliquippa, I think, is celebrating its 100th year this year. And I think
Wow.
there are a lot of kids that want to keep this stuff going. So there were always festivals. A lot of the festivals, centered around the Catholic Church and bazaars and things that they did. But, certainly one of the key ingredients of all these festivals was the spaghetti dinner. So all the Italian women, including my mother, would cook for the spaghetti dinner. So there was that aspect of it. But and I think they're important. And I think around the city of Pittsburgh, they're a pretty good. There's nothing specific in Pittsburgh like a big Italian festival like there used to be, but there are a lot
It
of
used to
festivals
be. I
around here.
remember. Yeah, I
Yeah,
remember. What
right.
is that? Station Square, maybe?
Station
The
Square.
Irish festival, the
Yeah,
Italian festival. And here you have, I think, the St. Joseph, when they carry the statue that you can
right.
in your dollar, the San Rocco, in different neighborhoods. And I'm trying to, I mean, we do La Befana because it's, again, you have to start sprinkling the seeds at a very young age. And especially if there is such an endearing rapport with the culture as the Befana, that, is so good with the kids and brings little gifts, then, it becomes also with traditions you have to persevere, because you can't just have it one year and be gone. You haven't built a tradition, you did an event, but to really build the culture, you have to do it over and over and again. And so that's why, as I say, comes the week of January 6th, we have families, if we haven't already contacted them, lining up waiting for La Befana to show up and everything. So we were talking about, I said that we were going to touch upon, coffee again. You know that I always love to collaborate with you. So we have this initiative. It's another coffee exploration. We have done it in the past. This time there will be a tour of La Prima Roaster, electricity permitting.
Yes.
Because it is actually scheduled for this weekend, and people can get more information on the Istituto Mondo Italiano website. And then I'm challenging myself in a couple of weeks from now to create an appetizer, a pasta dish, and a dessert that all contain coffee. So we'll be having fun cooking with coffee and see if I'm going to meet this challenge that I put upon me. So I'm going to have some very easy rapid fire questions, okay? And then maybe we'll go into the closing. So espresso or cappuccino for you?
Espresso.
Okay. Your favorite Italian word or expression?
Uh, Non c'è male.
Non c'è male. And we also have to add that at the strip district location of La Prima, it is Sam's Pride. It is green teacher's board, whatever you want to call it, where we have idioms. Tell us a little bit about how you started, and no one can argue about that they want the translation, or people that are outside arguing about the translation. It's the best thing that you could so tell us
I,
about your tradition of the board with the proverbs.
well, I mean, I come from, the field of literature and poetry and stuff like that. So I just like proverbs. And of course, some, the Sicilian novels have lots of proverbs in them. So I think I'll throw a proverb up there and tease people. Sometimes, especially my wife said, "Why would you put a proverb up there and not translate it?" I mean, that's part of the fun. And sometimes it's interesting to watch the Italians look at them, and they want to correct the grammar. And I say, well, unless you're a linguist, I don't think you want to play with the grammar. So, and can I tell you, I watch people come in the store, and as soon as they walk in, their head goes right there, and they look at the proverb. Or there are people that come in and say, okay, I got to take a picture because I have to send it to my son or my daughter or whatever the case might be. So it's really been an interesting conversation speech. But, little words of wisdom are nice. And my dad, as I said, my dad owned a bar room, and he used to have signs up there or little words of wisdom. If a man is hungry, don't give him a fish, teach him how to go fishing. Just little things that, say, oh, that's kind of interesting. And of course, I can tell you that every time I put one, well, not every time I put one up, I'm thinking about the political situation or the social situation. So there's a reason why it's up there.
Mm-hmm. So a book every Italian American should read. Or what would you recommend someone to?
Blood of My Blood.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Richard Gambino. Not an easy book, but it talks about what I had mentioned before, the idea of the family and how the family worked, and how the family unit was what allowed them to survive. And it also made the family look kind of patriarchal, and everything wasn't always equal, but it was certainly a good survival school. I think in some ways, if you want to understand your grandparents, in some cases your great grandparents, it's that book that maybe gave them the rough edges. But I mean, those people worked hard. The women were, well, here's the key to the book. And this is my life. My dad was the head of our family. My mother was the center of our family. Our family wasn't going to go anywhere until my mom agreed. Even though on the surface, that might not be what you saw. It was the women. And in my life, I've just been surrounded by a lot of strong women. So when somebody says to me, well, we need women's rights, I say, I don't know anything about that, man, because I'm around some awful.
The next question is, it has nothing to do with the picture, but I did come across one of our earliest starts when you were talking about the terminal building. And so back in the day, that's great memories. So
yeah.
If you were to define Calabria in one word, or sentence, okay? I can give you a few extra words. How would you define Calabria?
It's a land of beauty. It's a land of rugged beauty. The people have big hearts and they know how to live.
Okay. Uh, one of your favorite memory from the, or funny story from the early days of La Prima?
Uh, you know, I've been in business for almost 37 years, and finally, in the last decade, maybe I maybe learned how to be a businessman. But being in at La Prima and making well, the second day we were open, we had one customer. Some girl ran around the corner, was from Pittsburgh, lived in San Francisco, and she said, "Oh my God, finally an espresso in Pittsburgh." But my wife and oldest daughter and I sat there all day and froze and sold one coffee. I remember $12 days. I remember $27 days where 20 of the $27 were from our dear Aunt Barb and Uncle Joe. They brought their family in. That was the only business we did. And I thought, oh my God, what are you doing? So it's good to go back and remember, I know I have some real good ideas about entrepreneurship. And it's stories like that. Who does these kinds of things? Why do they do it? Why do they think this is a good idea?
So, okay, one tradition that you hope it will never disappear. Okay.
Well, I'm going to segue. Christmas Eve.
Mm-hmm.
And, we're talking about like Italian American heritage, and I think both of us are concerned about the future. But, when you realize today how many restaurants are having special Christmas Eve dinners, that's
Mm-hmm.
part of our heritage. And not just for the Italians, but for maybe some of our friends to come and see how we lived and say, man, this is really neat.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is St. Joseph's Day is having a comeback, and people are starting to celebrate more St. Joseph's Day. So I think those are good things for the possibility of continuing Italian American heritage.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I have three more. The next one is we're going back to coffee. One thing people misunderstand about Italian coffee culture.
Well, I think there are these things like you can't have a cappuccino after 11 o'clock. That might be true in Italy. It's not true in America. Coffee is quick in Italy. It's slow in America because we want to linger. The Italians don't want to linger. They might come back to a coffee shop 3 or 4 times a day, whereas the Americans are going to come maybe once and hang around for a half hour. So it's a different. I think it's just a different pacing. It's like drinking in a beer garden in Italy. Where they serve beer in Italy is different than a place that they serve beer in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
It's cultural. I think it's cultural.
If you weren't running a cafe, what would you be doing?
Well, I guess I'd be teaching.
Okay.
That's
Mm-hmm. And we hope to see you pursuing that on top of everything else. Because, and then the last one small Italian habit you think everyone should adopt. I have one that I actually show pictures before, which is hugging people, that human contact. When people walk into Mondo Italiano, especially with the kids, they come as strangers, but we say we're huggers. So unless there is any objection to it, I would say a good warm hug would be my little habit that everyone should have. What's yours?
Yeah. I'm a kisser, and I hate to leave my house without kissing my wife or kissing my wife when I come in or when I see my kids. I think it's important. I mean, I think one of the things that's important about it is when I kiss my wife. Especially when we were younger, I wanted my kids to see me kissing my wife. I thought that was important.
Yes. So, Sam, is there anything else that you would like to bring up or discuss before we disconnect from today's conversation? Because I'll see you on Saturday. But anything else that you would like to share, words of wisdom?
Yeah, there's one thing I would like to say. I had mentioned earlier about this idea of intellectualizing the Italian American experience because we don't have direct connection with the immigrants. So, there's a lot of story that has been lost. One of the ways to do that is, again, by intellectualizing. So there are books, films, lectures, magazine and articles. There, when I started studying Italian American literature, there were some books, but there is a gigantic canon of Italian American literature, or Italian American arts. Let's use Italian American art. So whether it's song, poetry, whatever the case might be, there's lots of stuff in there. So you can plug in any idea, any of the myths of life are also part of Italian American heritage. So I would encourage people to say, hey, if you have a school assignment, or if you want some entertainment, you want to read a book, maybe there are certain subjects you read, but maybe once in a while you just pick one up that talks about the heritage that you came from. There's some great poetry. I think poetry would be a good way to teach the Italian American experience. There's people. I mean, think about what these people did. They left their homeland. I think we need to have a more appreciation for immigrants in general. When you understand, they didn't all come here to go on welfare and get everything for free. They came here to survive, to have a life, to give back. So they have some absolutely stories that we can learn by. To how to give sacrifice, to make sacrifices, give sacrifices, what you do for your friends, what you do for your families. And that's the Italian American story. So we can, I think that there's canon out there. There's lots of stuff. Plug in once in a while, buy a magazine. There's a magazine out of Chicago called Fra Noi, which talks about Italian Americans all the time. There is the ISDA in their newspaper. Sons of Italy has a magazine. For $40 you can join I mean, if you join the Sons of Italy, you don't ever have to go, but you'll get the magazine every month. Same with the ISDA. So just to inform yourself.
Yeah, just kind of that taking it, because then the knowledge becomes contagious, because you start to do something and you just want to peel another layer of it.
Knowledge is power.
Yeah. Well, Sam, thank you very much for sharing your story with us today.
Okay, sure.
Your passion for coffee, community, and culture is truly inspiring. And La Prima Espresso isn't just a cafe. It's indeed a living testament to how tradition and innovation can thrive side by side. And through your work as both as a business owner and a scholar, you have shown us that heritage is something that we live every day, not just something that we remember. And we're grateful for all that you do to keep the Italian American spirit alive here in Pittsburgh and beyond. So, grazie di cuore. And I invite everyone to check out the new location in Oakland, and also to come and join us on the roaster tour or this coffee explanation. There is much more to be learned. But unfortunately, our time together today is up. Il Big Ben ha detto stop. And it's time for us to say arrivederci e alla prossima. We want to thank you for tuning in into the program. If you have any questions or comments, or if you have any topics you would like us to address, please contact us at italianradiohour@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. And remember, if you or any of your family and friends have missed a prior episode or would like to listen to this episode again, subscribe to the Italian Radio Hour on YouTube or where you catch your favorite podcasts. And don't forget to share, because sharing is caring. So I would like to thank one more time my guest, Patti, and our sponsors, Istituto Mondo Italiano and La Prima Espresso. Until next time, alla prossima. Ciao, ciao.
Hey, and thank you for all your work and efforts too. You've done a great job.
Thank you, Sam. See you on Saturday. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.